because, if you intend to practice law and if you intend to ever have a jury trial, you're going to have to be faced with the reality that this is an issue. If you're black in America, it's an issue. If you have never become a lawyer, walking down the street, getting on an elevator, applying for a job, it's an issue. So we are going to have to deal with it. And that's going to be the challenge in the next 50 years. You may be around for the 100-year anniversary of the march. I won't.
And I'd just like to speak to that just quickly. Cynthia Lee has a great law review article that came out and cited your book on implicit bias in the law, and she talks about the Trayvon Martin case and how there were ways that we could have talked about how race is implicitly in here, and to think about, and I think your slides definitely showed this, Justin, about when you think about dangerous, right? When you think about a black man walking, he may not be armed, but automatically, implicitly, we may believe he is more dangerous than somebody else walking. And so that's very interesting. But I would say, in response, there's no empirical evidence. But what I try to tell everybody is that the key is that we do more for people who are like us. And so one of the ways that you can undercut implicit bias is to connect with people so that they can understand that you are an individual and you are more like them. It's just automatic, okay? I'm going to say this on the tape. So my student who's here is wearing Ohio State, and I'm from Michigan. So already there's a bias there that she's going to have to overcome. I'm just using that as an example. It's not true. But right, and so if you come up to me and you say, hey, I'm from Michigan, hey, I like sports, then you have connected in some way with me. And so it may overcome the bias I have because Ohio State is number 2, but we're going to beat them anyway, right? And so we laugh about that, but that's something that we can think about as we know that there is an implicit bias. It's the people who hold it, but it's also the people who experience it, to connect with people so that they understand that I am you, you are me. And how best can we do that? Because that's really the key. If we believe that everyone is like me, then that is the key. So that's how I would answer it, is that you need to connect with the person to get them to understand that I am you and you are me. I think there was one more question.
I have a two-part question. First one, compared to studies that were done in the past, let's say like go back to the 1980s, right now on biases, has there been, what are the differences? And also, the studies out there conducted now, were the results consistent on age groups and people living in areas?
As far as the first question, the methods have changed. So the implicit association test was created in the 90s. The results haven't changed in the 18 years that they've been running that. The studies in the 80s, the priming stuff that Rob talked about came about in 1989. The results haven't changed since they started running that. In 1954, there's a famous study about what happens when people are told a story about a person with a knife on a streetcar. And when that story is told and retold, the knife started in the white man's hand, ends up in the black man's hand. The studies show, even though we don't often run the Dahl study is an exception, we don't often run the exact same studies years later, there's not a lot of improvement. As far as geographically, it's an interesting question. I think the real question to ask is, how does culture affect this stuff, right? Because culture is causing this stuff. Culture can be our way out if we can work to create an egalitarian culture. If you could find a place in our country that has an egalitarian culture and you ran these tests, you would find different results. There's not many places like that. I run black-white studies in Hawaii, where the black community is small and the biases are just as powerful. Now we have some great things about race relations in Hawaii, and we also have negative stuff. So you take these studies and you run them in other places. You do see cultural differences, but not massive ones. One interesting, I think one way to think about the role of culture and stereotypes is through the stereotype threat studies on how test taking is inhibited by stereotypes and how the self is affected. So Asian American women who are told that they're taking a math test, if their Asian identity is activated prior to the test, they perform extremely well. If their female identity is activated before the test, they perform poorly on the test, on the same test. If you run that study in Canada, activating the Asian identity doesn't improve test taking because there's no stereotype in Canada of Asians being good at math. So the connection between culture and stereotype is the key to me, and we have to work to have a society that avoids such a negative stereotype.
All right, well, it is 2 o'clock. I'd like to again thank the panelists and thank you for coming. I'm told that this link will be up on the Case Western Reserve website, so if there are friends who could not attend today, you could suggest that they click on this link. So thank you. Okay, Ben Collins, right there, in the blue. Okay, he wanted to talk, yeah. Oh, thank you.